Hi, this is Sue Greenwald. I'm with awakenstories.com, and I'm here today with Eva Santiago. Hi, Eva. How are you?
Hey again. Good.
Today we're doing an Anything Goes video. It's called Dreams, Angels, and Past Lives. Now, that can encompass any other mystical creature, ET, UFO encounter you may have had, any cool story. So I just thought you have had such an interesting life that you probably have a lot of stories that we would like to hear.
I have a few. I had to put some in a book, but I still have some.
Yeah. And sometimes when you speak them, it's a little more interesting than writing them. You know, you don't always get the emotion.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
No, there's something about expressing through video. I mean, as a writer, I love the written word, but we're in this age where video's pretty powerful, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, I can't remember when it started happening. All I know was that it's the way I've always been. You know, I was always a very curious child. I always asked questions. I irritated people with questions. You're not supposed to ask that. Go away. But I didn't care. You know, I was like, well, why not? Why isn't it like that? Or, you know, you say one thing, but you do another, you know, type deal. And, but I think that one of my first encounters to where I can go, I was visited, right? Because, you know, as a child, you know, it's something special, but I didn't really have anybody to tell. So I don't have that recollection. I have stories of people telling me stuff, you know?
Right.
But like, for example, after my mother died, my oldest brother told me a long time ago that we were at a park playing and she appeared to us. Okay. So, but that's not my, you know, my story.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So, but as far as I can remember where I can go, I know I was protected because something bad could have happened, was when I was a young woman in living in Atlanta. I was by myself, no family, just lived with 4 roommates, 4 girls that I went to school with. And I remember doing something really foolish. And I was always one of these studious types. I went to school. I wasn't there to party. I couldn't afford the party life because I was there on my own dime, you know? So I had to work my ass off to support myself and then go to school. But I remember I was living in this apartment with this one girl, and she was gone for the weekend with her boyfriend. So I had the apartment all to myself. And it was spring break. So I had papers. I was catching up on papers and stuff that were due when we got back and stuff. And I remember, that whole weekend I said to myself, you're not going anywhere. You don't have to work. Catch up on all your work, right? And because I was nerdy like that. And so I remember a Saturday afternoon, it'd been raining all afternoon. I'd been in my apartment just typing away. And all of a sudden, I heard a knock on the door. No, I lived in the regular area, not crime ridden, but not the best either, kind of in the middle, right?
Suburban or whatever.
Yeah. It was just an apartment, a regular apartment. And it was around evening time, somebody knocks on the door. And I didn't even think of it, Sue. Okay. I just got up, opened the door, and was like, yo, what's up? Really, like, to this day, I think, man, anything could have happened. I just opened the door to some stranger, and there was a stranger there. It wasn't a neighbor. And it was this tall dude. And he was like, kind of like slurring his words. So I was like, what's up with this guy? Is he on drugs or something? Right. And he goes, can I use your phone?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, sure. And it's not like I had my phone by the door. I had the phone on the kitchen table, so he had to come in, right? And I just didn't pay him no mind. I left the door slightly ajar, and I said, yeah, man, where's the phone? I sat on the table there, and I went back to my work, very, like, more focused on what I was doing and not paying attention to the stranger in my house. right? Who, by the way, didn't had a bad energy, because I knew it was like this. What's up with this guy? I should have been more aware. Hello,
Right.
this is how these bad things happen. And so, so I let him in, and then I went back to my work, and all of a sudden, after a couple of minutes, he was staring at me intently, and I'm like, "Can I help you? You said you needed to use the phone." And he was just like, he wouldn't stop looking at me. And as I remember it, Sue, I felt like he was glued to the spot, like he couldn't move, right? And then all of a sudden I snapped out of it. I said, dude, are you using the phone or not? Because you got to go. And then he looks at me. And as soon as I said that, I felt a huge presence with me on the couch.
Right.
And I was like, I felt okay, right? I felt like, and I said, dude, you got to get the step in, got to go. You know, this, you didn't use the phone. And it's like he snapped out of it. And he was like dazed and goes, oh, okay, and left. Right?
Wow. Wow.
So I ran to the door, I locked it and everything. And I was like, what the hell were you thinking? Right? And then all of a sudden I knew in here and in here that there had been an angelic protection. Years later, I was shown that there had been this huge angel on my couch. And that's why that guy just couldn't stop looking.
Right.
He was looking past me.
Right. He probably saw
was.
the energy and the glow and maybe even the form of the angel, and it flipped him out.
That's that's years later, as I'm thinking about all this and writing my book, it was like, no, there was this huge angel right beside you. That guy couldn't touch you. Right.
Right.
And so it was things like that. Now, another time prior to Atlanta, okay, I used to party before I got to Atlanta. I took a year off between high school and college.
Right.
And I went to the beach. I was living in a beach town in South Carolina, heavy military presence, Beaufort, South Carolina. It's it's the Marine Corps trains there, and the Navy has a station there. And I was doing what a typical 17-year-old would do, you know, just hanging out, working a job, paying my bills, and partying, you know.
Right.
And I was living with a very good friend of mine. I met this sweet girl. We became fast friends. And I was 17 and she was 27 with a little boy. And eventually I ended up living with her, and she would loan me her car. Okay. Now, something happened one night that I knew I was transported home by angels, because there's no way I would have made it home how intoxicated I was. And I was
right.
Yeah. So I was at a friend's house. We started drinking. I was itty bitty. So I could get drunk on, you know, with one bottle of beer, because you know, you're itty bitty. But no, that night I drank like a fool. And I remember grabbing the keys and my friend going, don't go. And I was like, no, I got to get back home because she needs the car in the morning, blah, 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 whatever. I jumped in the car. And to this day, I don't know how I got home.
Wow.
Because the next day I woke up and I was like, I'm home. What happened? Right. And that was the first time I ever blacked out from alcohol, which was waking me up to, this ain't your friend. Okay. The bad things can happen. Yeah. And I was always very much like that. I would learn lessons quickly. Like, that was a dumb lesson. Like the same guy letting a stranger in my apartment. That was another, you know, I'm a quick steady. I learned quick. Right. So I look up the next morning, I look out the window and I'm expecting to see, you know, a car or no car or something, or the cops. And it was like, the car was there. It was parked. The keys were on the table. And I looked at my friend and I was like, how did I get home? Wow. She goes, you don't remember? I said, no. And I know it, like I said, years later, I look back on that incident. It was like, no, you were transported home.
Wow.
You were kept, you know? And I know I mentioned it last video. I've always been kept, Sue.
Yeah.
The power of source to keep you is, and anybody who's been orphaned, because in the Bible, one of my favorite verses, it says that source, daddy, looks after the orphans and the widows. And it's near and dear to me because I have known that personally.
Right.
I've known about the keeping power of source, you know, and that's the story of my life. If you want to summarize my life, that girl right there, she knows about what it's like to be kept by Source, like, under the pinions of his wings or whatever, I know that keeping power. And it's what's covered me, my children, my grandchildren, because that's generational, It's
It
not
is
just
very exciting.
it extends out,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's eternal, right? It's forever and ever.
So the fact that you were kept so carefully must mean you have big missions to accomplish, which you have done throughout your life already. You've really come, like, like I said, you were given lemons, you made lemonade out of it. You're getting it, everything's getting better and better. And you've helped so many people along the path, right? Yeah, it's so exciting.
I appreciate you saying that. Then I wanted to talk about a little bit about how my parents and my grandma, so it would be my paternal grandmother, have been those people I've considered angels, even though I know they're not, but they've gone on, but they've protected me from that side. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I remember when I was in South Carolina, I have a black and white picture of like portraits of each of my parents. And I have one of him and one of her. And those pictures, I was, when I was anxious about going to Atlanta by myself, I'm 17 years old, I'm going to Atlanta to college. I don't know a soul in Atlanta, okay? And I was scared. In my last few days in South Carolina, I started, like the last few months when it was wrapping up, I was getting ready to go to to a new mission. And I was scared. And I remember the first time my father spoke to me through his portrait. His eyes were moving. It was like it came alive, that picture, And I remember I could not wait to go home. And I would sit there and I look at that picture and just, he was there.
Right.
Comforting me, telling me it's going to be okay, and I've had the same thing happen with my mother, but my mother has shown up in dreams, in the other reality, and what they call us dreams, right?
Right.
There's been times where I've needed a comfort, and I never knew her. There's been times where I've needed a reassurance as a woman, as a mom, and she showed up once for me in that and what I needed, right? And it was a Christmas I was really sad because, we were traveling around already in the travel trailer. My marriage was, not in good shape, all this stuff. And I had 3 little kids I was looking after. And that Christmas, we didn't have Christmas presents, physical ones, but Daddy gave me a huge present. And that was, allowing me to see my mother in that dream. And she showed up as I would imagine that she would look like now, and she was just there watching me and totally comforting me and telling me what good job I was doing with my kids.
You're going to make me cry.
It was so vivid. Yeah. I can tell you what she was wearing. She was wearing like this blue top with these blue slacks, and she was always very stylish, and she was, oh my God, she was telling me, and you're going to do more, and I'm proud of you. And I've never heard that from from the person that raised me. I always longed to hear that from her, but and here my mother is coming to me from the other side going, you got it, kid.
That's big stuff. That's especially, and with these lucid dreams, it's a feel. You not only do you see the visual, the color, like what she's wearing or whatever, it's a feeling there as well. And when you wake up, you were probably like feeling awesome and maybe even crying a little bit because it's so vivid.
I was so touched. And then that was the beginning because she showed up, her spirit showed up to let me assist me in my home birth. And I was having my 4th baby at home. I told you all of that. And right at transition, when it's the hardest part of the labor, all of a sudden I turned into this little girl, and I started talking to my mother, who was right there.
Right.
And I was like crying out to her, and my midwife was there, my husband was there, my kids were there. And it was one of those moments, a second time, where I knew she was there, and she was
Right.
there to help me, and she
Right.
saw me through, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I named my second daughter after her. I gave her her middle name because I was like, no, my mother was here, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I have a theory I've told my kids over and over, because they lost their father 2 years ago, right?
Right. Right.
And at the end of his life, he was 20 years older than me, so he was 70, right? And at the end of his life, he couldn't help, and I knew he, because he was sick too. So his life was dwindling away, and he wasn't as strong, right? And I just remember the other day, my son came up to me. He's 24, so he lost his dad at 22. And the other day, he's like, Mom, it's great that he pops up in my dreams. I mean, yeah, he comes in my room all day long, and if I'm sleeping, he'll sleep for hours and wake up and tell me, I was just saying, all right. And he goes, but he was sad. He was extra sad that day. Something happened. And he goes, it's great, Mom, but you know, I want him here. And I have to remind him, honey, he couldn't help you here like
Right.
he's helping you from that side that is
Right.
very real.
Right.
And just because he's not here to physically hug,
Right.
oh, they're here.
Right.
You
So
can't discount that.
when you say your father talked you through his photo, I think this was before you went to college. Did you hear words? Did you just have a knowing? So you heard words.
I heard words. I heard him, and it was funny because it wasn't in Spanish. He was talking to me in English. I mean, he never knew English because he was from Colombia.
Right, right.
And I was going, oh, you speak, and I speak Spanish, so it wasn't like that. It was, but he was talking in words, and I could see his mouth moving,
Wow, that's
like
cool.
you and me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now I had to keep this to myself because it was like, yeah, oh. And then I told my girlfriend that I was living with at the time, her name was Teresa. I told her about it because she understood the supernatural, and she walks up to that picture and she was like, this picture was talking to you. And I thought she was going to laugh at me. She goes, good, you need it. And then left.
Wow, how cool is that?
Right? That reassurance. So yeah.
I might have already written this on my blog website, but there I don't know if you know who Padre Pio is. He's a Catholic saint, but he was very spiritual. They were actually going to kick him out of the church, but he was very spiritual. Like he bilocated, and he was really into healing, and he had stigmata and blah blah blah. Right. So he had all these things, but the Catholics didn't like him, but the people loved him.
Yeah.
So where my first yoga studio was, about 5 miles away, was a Padre Pio Center. And there were statues and all over. And I took like groups of people, I call them field trips. So we would do like kind of a little tour, and we'd kind of like into it, and we'd add the meditations, and it was a cool day.
Yeah.
So there was a life-size Padre Pio statue, and I forget exactly how his hands were. I think they were like this. Mm-hmm. I'm not 100% sure. Like his hands are like this. And so my friend Stacy and I go up, and we each have a hand, and we're like kind of looking down. And I don't know, we're praying or whatever. I am not religious, just for the record.
Oh,
but
I know.
the statue came alive. I mean, you had to be there, because I looked up and I went like, oh my God, because it went from a different color, and it moved. The statue moved. Yeah. And me and Stacey, we went like, what? And we looked at each other. Then we looked down a couple times. We didn't know what to do. And then it turned back into a statue again.
Wow.
All right. Real story.
Yeah.
I mean, so that kind of stuff happens. You get these messages from unexplicable sources or whatever. And that really wasn't maybe a message, but I felt the energy as well.
I think, look, it's a message because it's something that you needed at that time. If it comforted you, if you were, whatever state of mind you were in, and you feel better, it's a message, you know? I mean, we get so caught up with the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And it's like, no, it was Source using whatever vehicle he wants to, to get to you, and it was effective, right?
Right.
One of the things I'm very open-minded, and I've always been open-minded, and that's why I think I know. In some circles, it's like, who is she kidding? Or who she thinks she is? Is she?
She
I've heard it all.
dances.
I've heard it.
Ooh.
I know she dances to manifest the angelic things happening up there. But she's lost it, right? Or
Yeah.
no. Who does she think she is? I'm like, I don't have to think. I know. I know what I do and why I'm here. But anyway, I wanted to tell you something about the message. It's really back to angels. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wrote down some notes because I wanted to come prepared to this because I prepare, because sometimes you have to, that way we can get to the, to the core of what we want to talk about,
right.
So, so another angelic visitation that I had was when I was pregnant with Elena. It was 1994, and it was around this time, April, May, and I was already showing belly. And of course, mind you, I felt all alone. I didn't have my parents. I didn't have an older woman to go to, an older sister. It was just me, right? And my husband. That was it. And I was working at a museum in Atlanta, a history museum. And it was an afternoon after lunch, and it was dead time at the museum that day, middle of the week. And no, actually, I know, because we had church night that night, because we would go to Wednesday churches, and that night I went and told all about it. And so it was that time of day, and I saw two beings walk into the museum. And I was sitting in the gift shop. I was the manager of the gift shop of that museum. And it was just me and a good friend of mine sitting at the chair. And two beings came in, and they were tall. Sue, I had to go like this. Who are these tall ass people? And I remember one made a beeline to me because I was at the register, standing at the register. And the other one like disappeared into the museum part, and I never went, sir, you didn't pay. I was like, who cares? He went in there to check it out. It didn't occur to me to stop him, right? But then after a minute, I had to check myself and go, where's the other guy? I know two people walked in here, right? And I remember the one that approached me at the register. I remember what he wore. He wore, those really colorful exercise suits of the 90s.
Like the velour or whatever.
Yeah. No, and they make that sound
the parachute pants.
Those.
Yeah.
And that very colorful, and a baseball cap that covered everything. I mean, because he had it lowered, and so I could not see his face.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a sense of this guy is tall as hell, right?
Yeah.
And so I also remembered that he sounded funny, like not English. And I'm very good at picking up accents because I've studied languages, So it wasn't from any language that I could remember, right? That, wasn't Russian, it wasn't Spanish, Italian, Greek, none of that. I'm going, okay, this guy. So I had a sense that he wasn't from here from the get-go, okay? So then he puts up, I don't remember seeing his hands either, because all of a sudden he put a change on the counter, and he was going to buy a couple postcards, right? And he on the counter, and he says to me, Miss, can you help me count this money? I'm not familiar with the currency. And I was going, okay. So blah, blah, blah. I'm counting his change and everything, his money. And all of a sudden he says, it wasn't a question. It was more like he already knew, right? And I wasn't big pregnancy wise. I stayed really small with Elena. So, and people would tell me, man, you don't even look pregnant, are you?
Right.
And so he says to me, so this is your first child. And I'm like, I'm looking at him like I'm stumbling, like, oh, yeah. He goes, and you're excited. I said, of course, yeah, I'm really happy, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a pause, and then he left me with the message that I was supposed to hear that day was, everything is gonna be okay, don't worry.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And I went, I was like, and he grabbed his postcards and left. As quick as it began, the encounter, he left. Okay. So all of a sudden I look back, my friend was there, so there was a witness.
Right.
And I
Okay.
looked at her and I said, Margaret. She goes, baby. And she was an older woman. She goes, baby, you were just visited by an angel.
I'm
And
getting chills.
yeah.
Chills.
And I said, right. And she goes, yeah. She goes, because the Bible says about, sometimes we entertain angels and we're not even aware
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, honey, as soon as she said that, I bolted out the door, my pregnant self running out to catch this person. And I'm like looking, like this was seconds after I left. I'm looking up and down that the whole expanse of the street. And I ran up and I ran down. I checked around the corner. That man was gone.
Wow.
And I came back and I told my friend, and she goes, "No, that was an angel, baby. That was an angel."
As you said that, I totally got chills on that. At first, I was going to say extraterrestrial, like right out of the movies because you can't see the face or whatever. But how cool is that? But I'm, of course, going to the negative. Like I'm thinking of all these movies where they come in and take over, You're still here though.
No, I and then of course that never left me, and
right,
then
right.
I went to church that night and I told everybody about it, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's really cool," because it was one of those charismatic churches, and they believe and they're open, more open.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. It was just like, and then I've known all my life that these things, have happened to me. might not have the recollection, but it didn't just start happening all of a sudden. Now it's like I can remember, I can tell you all about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there was a time, another person that shows up in my dreams is my Abuelita. That's Spanish for granny. And she was my father's mother. And she was super spiritual. I would sit there and not have to talk to her because she would sew on her sewing machine. And man, we conversed all the time. It was like to this day, like whenever she's shown up in my dreams too.
Right.
I'll pick up conversations right where we left off. Matter of fact, I saw her in a dream. So 4 months before she passed away, before she transitioned, I woke up from a dream. I was already married. And I remember being on this platform and she's getting on the train and I'm going, Abuelita, let me come with you. And she was like, no, baby girl, you got to stay. It's not your time.
Yeah.
But please let me come with you. It was, and the doors opened. She stepped in. I went to step in and she said, you can't. I have to go. You can't. And I'm crying. And when I woke up crying real tears.
Right.
And then my husband was like, well, what's the matter? What's wrong? And I told him, he goes, we got to go. We got to go see her. You don't know. Right. And so we went down to Panama City, which is where she was living. And that was the last time I saw her.
Wow.
I need to go. No, you know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes back to the messages, I can't stress enough that spirituality has to do with our creativity. And you got to be open to however way source wants to manifest.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's sad because like I saw my kids when they were growing up, they were all very, awake, all of them. My youngest one would sit there on the kitchen floor like this with her crayon. What are you doing, baby? I'm drawing that guy. And it would be something that looked like an angel, like a wing or something, things like that. And I saw that as they grew up, you start losing that. I mean, we live in the matrix is broken, but before that, it was sad to start seeing them. They get to be a certain age and then it's like, it's not the same.
Well, I'm sure you didn't squelch their beliefs or whatever. And, since they didn't have outside teachers, they didn't. But I think just being busy in society has a big
society.
Yeah.
Totally. Because look, one of the coolest things that we ever saw happen. Oh, and by the way, my youngest, she saw my angel. She saw my guardian angel. Remember I told you Kim Clement came to
Yeah,
Vegas in
yeah.
2000 and he spoke and all that. Well, during the service, because he was a musical prophet. If you know anything about him, he had to have music to prophesy and to give words to people. And his services, the worship in his services was just like nothing I'd ever experienced ever. And I don't think I ever will because he was that open, you know? And I remember me and my kids were dancing because he was there on his piano, just, you know, going crazy and all this stuff. It was just such a celebratory energy, that
Right, right.
whole worship. And all of a sudden, my youngest daughter comes up to me and she goes, Mama, who's that lady? And I'm like, what lady, baby? And we were over there in a corner, you know, away from the people in the sanctuary, but away from the, you know. And she goes, Mama, there's this lady following you. And I
Ooh,
looked at her and I
I'm
said,
getting chills again.
and I said, what does she look like, baby? Because I couldn't see. And she goes, she looks like well, we say Native American. She goes, she looks like an Indian. And she goes, she's wearing feathers and stuff. And Sue, I was like, and then a few days later, she came up to me and described again. She goes, Mom, really, there was this lady right next to you and she was following you because you were dancing and all this stuff. And she stayed with you the whole time. Is that your angel, Mama? And I was told, yeah, that was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm getting chills on that. So that is super cool. Super cool.
And she was like, my youngest was 6 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang. And so what's cool was because they grew up in a space where they were allowed to express, you know, the spiritual. I remember there were times, and they can tell you because to this day, it's like, what was that? There were times where I would be homeschooling them. They would be doing their schoolwork or I would be talking to them. And there would be times where you could see, I don't know how to describe this to you. And I hope my words will convey it. But we would see like a shadow went over the house. The first time that happened, we look up, and I made a silly comment, and my kids are like, really, Mom? I said, maybe that was an airplane. Mom, that had to be a huge airplane to come that low to the house. And we didn't hear it. We just saw a shadow.
Right.
Or
right.
a bird. Right. And then we're all laughing. And that would happen consistently. Just this big shadow. And it was fleeting, like, whoa, wait, what? But we all saw it, you know? And then there was another time where we were inside, we were listening and to music, and it rained indoors. You could feel drops of water coming.
Wow.
And we were like, the windows weren't open, the fan was going, but we felt sprinkles of water inside. And I was like, did anybody feel that? And my kids were like, hey, who sprinkled water? What is this? All right. And it was just another, hey, we're here.
You're wow. Wow. And the fact that you all witnessed the same thing at the same time, that's super.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they were little, so they weren't cynical. They weren't like, oh, there goes Mom again with her crazy talk, you know?
Yeah.
And it's cool because like, so they went through their teen years and all that stuff. But as now that they're, like I said, their dad has departed to the other side, it's bringing them back now more to that because they're like, oh my God, I see Dad in my dreams. Oh, my dad shows up here and Dad does, you see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And it warms my heart because they're back to that childlike state that, you know, that this childlike trust that you have to have, that to know that this isn't all there is, guys. And if you think, then I'm sorry, but you're limited. Open your eyes.
It really gives you you have less fear in your life. I mean, you have less fear and more, I don't know, boldness, more ease. If you think that, you know, your life is over, you're going to be afraid to make mistakes or whatever, because you don't want to get hurt or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people are going through right now, where if you know that you'll be, you know, living a really long, maybe forever life,
Yeah.
and or maybe the body will die, but the spirit goes on. That's really a comfort. So that
Yeah.
all your
Yeah. And you know,
experiences, it doesn't go to waste. Nothing goes to waste, you know?
no, and that's why I feel like, when I share my story about my life and people look at me like, just by looking at you, that's the last thing I would have expected. And it's like, well, good, because, there's too many people wear their suffering badge right
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
And you don't want to be that guy. You want to be that overcomer, that
yeah,
victorious, you know,
totally.
you
Yeah,
know what I mean? I
yeah,
mean, there's enough sub stories to go around, honey. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
But you have to understand that that was not, it wasn't what that saying that said, the old saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
exactly. That's my
Uh,
saying.
and it makes you, and let's take it a step further, Sue. It
Yeah,
makes you victorious,
yes, yeah,
right? I mean,
right,
that's the only reason. I mean, I look at people and it's like, you have a choice. Kim Clement used to say this, and to this day I adopted it as my own, and I give him credit where it's due. But he used to say, you have to learn to reign from your place of pain. Reign, REIGN.
mhm,
Reign from your place of
right,
pain.
right,
Because pain, you can let it destroy you, or you can use it. And then I'd rather use it to help
right,
others, you
right.
know?
Well, your life story really shows how you did, you were smart, all right, and very motivated. So you took a situation, it wasn't ideal, but you flipped it. You flipped it each time. I mean, you could have stayed the victim, you could have
Yeah.
wallowed, you could have become, an addict, whatever, it doesn't even matter. But instead of that, you realize, okay, these are the facts, suffering isn't going to benefit anyone, and you
Mm-mm.
let it go. You
Mm-hmm.
became stronger and smarter. And we all have to like sometimes like sit on the couch and cry and boo-hoo and
Of course, I did
vent
my
or
share.
whatever.
Yeah,
And yeah, so we all have that, but like most of us don't have the giant issues that you've had. And
yeah,
we have to use where we are and think, where do we want to be and how do we want to be? What can I do to make myself better? Maybe try something out of our comfort zone, or confide in someone. It doesn't even matter what it is, but
right.
rather than sit there and boo-hoo the rest of your life, that's a waste. It
That
does
is.
no one any good.
And not only that, but you're here for a reason.
Right,
And it's not to be a victim. And
right,
I hate to say that, but a victim mentality is you being a thief, okay, first of all, because you're robbing, because of your victim mentality, you're robbing yourself, right? And then you locked up with your gifts, okay? So then you can't give that to humanity.
right,
So then you're a thief, right?
right,
Because you
right,
robbed humanity of your best. You robbed you of your best and everybody else,
right.
and it's like, oh, and that's the way I see it. I'm like, well, I came here for a reason, and whatever was put in my path
Right.
was for my betterment.
Right. And we're supposed to be happy. Happiness is a vibration, a
Yeah.
frequency. Okay, so anger, fear, all those lower or negative they've measured all of this and they can even rank them. But happiness, love,
Hmm.
gratitude, those are the highest vibrations. So if
Totally.
you can go, and I think Abraham Hicks teaches this too, if you can go from fear or whatever and just raise your vibration a little bit in little baby steps, even to get to neutral, and then to get to higher, 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 doing the things you love, being with people you love,
Mhm.
doing whatever makes you happy, that ripples out to other people around you. It
Yeah,
sets an example, but you benefit the world that way as well as yourself, you know. And
absolutely.
and good things cannot come to you when you're in the
Mm-hmm.
negative lower vibrations. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're in fear and anger and all this other stuff, the good things can't get in.
No,
you know?
no, absolutely, because like begets like.
Right. Right.
And
And-
that's a law, that's a spiritual law, that whatever you're going to put out there for good
Right.
or for bad, you better make sure it's good.
Right. Right.
Because I mean, and bad things are going to happen anyway, because they're part of life. But when the bad things do happen, they don't destroy you, because
Right.
you have that mindset of, okay, what's the lesson in this?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and there is a lesson. Okay, let me go learn it, so I don't have to do this shit again.
The more you start, like you have an issue, let's say, a problem, a concern, whatever, and you figure it out. But if you can figure out and see the lesson, and of course, learn the lesson, or at least awareness is the first step. Okay.
Mhm.
Be aware that this is a lesson. I keep doing this same thing. It's not getting me the right results. And then maybe changing what you do or how you
Yeah.
behave. You're just going to go upward from there. And every time you learn a lesson, it's off the table. Now, there's always a never ending list of
Yeah.
lessons,
Yeah.
but the more you can tackle them and handle them, the easier life will be. The
Yeah.
easier the next lesson is going to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I've gone through a lot of hard lessons, and I'm stubborn and I've done stupid things. Well, everyone has.
Yeah.
But the more I recognize the lesson and what I can do to recover and benefit from the lesson. And I want the lessons. I kind of want them to be easy. But they do get easier, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to, talking about victim mentality. It was funny because back in 91, 92, I met up with one of my sisters, one of my blood sisters, and I love her dearly. But I remember she freaked me out because of the way she was talking. Mm-hmm. Keep going. Okay, so my sister comes to visit me, and she is like, she was talking from a victim mentality that was freaking me out. Okay, because I was, mind you, I was learning about what happened in the past. And so at that point, you're also being given an option, right? Which are you gonna get healed, or are you gonna become a victim? So my sister shows up at my doorstep. We get to talking. Now, mind you, before our mother died, our mother was disabled in a wheelchair briefly, but that's the way she remembers her. I don't have any recollection of that. I was too little.
Right.
And so my sister said that, oh my God, I'm so depressed. Our mom was depressed. And I'm so depressed that by the time I'm 35, I see myself just like she was in a wheelchair.
Oh.
Sue, I went, that doesn't sound right to me. Now, mind you, I was really young, right? But there was something in my heart going, I don't think Mama would have wanted us to repeat her history, right? And so the more I hung out with my sister, she had this wrong with her, and she had that wrong with her, and she had everything. And I couldn't see it, but
Right.
I could see that a lot of it was in her mind, right?
Exactly.
And so all these years later, you know, she comes in and out of my life, and I see her the same way. There were years where she has not spoken to me because she fell into, you know, a black hole of depression, like she would call it. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. No disrespect to the people with the depression, none of that, okay? But I could see how she kind of enjoyed the, you know, I'm just gonna disconnect and make it about me and all that stuff, right? I'm like, okay, dude, but I don't know what you're doing, but I'm living. Okay?
It's clear that after 30 something years, she hasn't learned the lesson, or she hasn't gotten a grip. She's still in victim mode. She's blaming everything on, you know, your parents' death. And it's sabotage because it's not allowing her to live her life.
No,
and not allowing happiness.
Here's the crazy part. So she got angry when she saw the manuscript of my book. She threw it down. She read half of it, right? And I didn't take any offense to it. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, there's gonna be people that don't like my stuff. I'm okay, you know. But she threw it down very aggressively, and she said, I lived this shit. Why would I want to read about it, right? And I'm like, ooh.
Wow.
Okay. She was mad, right? And so I collected it all and I put it away during that visit. And then all these years later, I catch up with her like 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And oh, I'm still this and I'm still
Oh,
that and
no.
and she's made some strides, right? But it's still the, you know, the cloud, the perpetual cloud of rain type deal. And I'm sorry, Sue, I didn't come here to suffer. Okay, I've suffered, but I didn't come here to live out an existence of
Right.
suffering.
Right. Right.
No, and that's why I ran from religion, because some religions teach you that, you know, suffering, sickness and all that is, you know, worshiping God. And
It's worthy.
I'm like,
You're a
mm,
worthy person if you suffer.
yeah, no, I'm
Wrong.
sorry. No,
Yeah.
I don't see it that way. You know,
Yeah.
what good am I if, you know, if the light of source cannot come through me and I become a vehicle of, you know, his power to help somebody else, then what the hell good am I?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's that simple. Now I wanted to tell you something real quick. That's pretty cool because
Okay.
so more about the angelics. I just remembered one thing 2 years ago, like around the fall. There came a big, and you know, we live in the desert, so those gusts of wind, sometimes there's something going on in that wind. You just got to stop and go, oh, you know, and I've closed my eyes and go, oh my God, that was a battle. There's this battle going on.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can see it. But I was in my kitchen. Now I don't have a kitchen window, but I have windows in my dining room. And so I can see out. So I was washing dishes and all of a sudden this gust of wind comes up and I look up and for several seconds, I saw this massive being that looked like a transformer in my backyard, right? And I was like, oh my God. And I looked up and I looked at him and I'm in my kitchen.
Right.
He's outside and
Right.
he goes, and he says this, don't worry, we're securing the premises.
Wow. So did you hear his voice or hear it inside your head?
I heard it was audible.
Physical
like,
voice? Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah, okay.
and then he was got, and I'm like, oh my God, I just saw a transformer in my and just like, and it was like he was like not even bothered, right? Like, hey, don't worry, little lady, we got you. We're just securing everything around here, and it was like that, you know.
Wow.
And then there was another time that was even crazier, and I want to talk about forgiveness because forgiveness opens you up to miracles. Okay, now after my kid's dad died, um, we talk all the time. We are like the closest that we, even though we divorced, we are like the closest we've ever been. And the key to that is forgiveness, okay? And moving on, right? And doing the healing, all of that. But I'm gonna tell you one time when that fall after he transitioned, I was in the backyard and all of a sudden, right in front of me, this giant dove like came in front of me. Like I was here and my patio was in front of me and that dove flew before me, hovered and disappeared. And I said, that's you, David, huh? He goes, I heard him laughing. He goes, yep.
So
And
cool.
I was glued to the spot. So I was like, so David's a dove. Oh my God, he's ascended. He's like promoted, you know, he's gone on for real here, you know, the physical is gone, but there was his spirit right in front of me, huge
Right.
beautiful dove, right?
Right.
And we had our problems. We had, you know, things we battled with together. He had his demons, all this stuff, you know. Years I wrote about stuff that happened, you know, in the relationship. But I came to terms with this man that I was with for 25 years. And I chose, I chose forgiveness because, you know, that way, and this is what I was explaining to my son the other day. I said, I chose forgiveness because I wanted to be able to show up for him at the end. Now imagine if I was bitter, if I was full of unforgiveness and bitterness toward him, right? Imagine. Then at the end, I would have bailed. Like, hey guys, you
Right.
take care. No, but I couldn't do that to my kids.
Right. Right.
I could not do that to my kids, Sue, because it's like I'm the matriarch of this family.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And so that's why when he manifests, I can see him, because there's no veil anymore. There's that forgiveness took away all that, and it was mutual. It was, he obviously, because it takes two to tango,
Right. Right.
we hurted each other. We hurt each other. But having healed it here, that's why it's so important. You got to come to terms with things here, because you're gonna face them again and again and again and again.
I don't think the average person would go into a marriage wanting to hurt the other person.
No,
I mean, like the average person.
That's not the aim.
yeah. The average person doesn't have that, evil desire, if you will. But, sometimes it does happen, and it can get pretty ugly, you know. And I don't know, specifically what happened in your situation, but what are some of the ways you tried to forgive him, or you did forgive him? What are the things that you would do to help facilitate that?
Well, let me tell you something. Understanding his history helped me a lot.
Yeah.
We were both broken as kids.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that I knew that his unforgiveness was tainting my marriage, was tainting our family. So it was that curse coming down the pike again.
Right.
And I was going, no, I can't have this. I've healed this part of the ancestry, part of the family line. Okay, you have to too. And I would tell him that. And he was so hurt and so much in pain and wouldn't let it go, that I knew I was instrumental in his life to go, honey, it's gonna ruin everything you have, everything that's beautiful that we've built together. Right. It's gonna be ruined by that past. Right. And he would look at me like, okay, I get it, but it's not gonna happen. because it was a choice of his will, right? Yeah. It's like I chose to forgive him and to forgive everybody in my past, because I had to go back down that way and forgive everybody that had ever, thrown anything at me or hurt me. And so it began with, forgiving. Like, and I think I told you last time, I had to forgive myself. Right. And I had to forgive Source, because for a long time I was like, yeah, great. So you made me an orphan. Great. That I don't deserve this. Right. And then I had to forgive everybody, not just some people. Right. Everybody. I remember talking to my counselor one day, and she says this to me. Well, you got to forgive the child molester. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't want to. I remember I was full of spit and vinegar. No, I don't want to. I sat there and I told her that. And she goes, honey, if you don't, you're still tied to him. Right. He doesn't think about you. When they hurt us, they don't think about us. Okay. And here we are tormenting ourselves over and over. Oh, what they said and what they did and right. And so I had to choose. Right. Okay, what's up? Do I want to be like this, tied to those? I'm getting chills again. Yeah. Or do I want to go, okay, I'm free and I'm strong. I had to ask Source to give me the strength and the faith to forgive them. Couldn't find that in myself anywhere, Sue. I was like, is it anywhere in here? I don't see it. It wasn't there. And I had to go. Literally, I went by myself and I said, okay, all right, how am I supposed to do this? Because I don't feel it. Well, forgiveness is not a feeling. Forgiveness is a powerful force, right? And this counselor told me something. She said, look, I know what's going on in your mind. You think because you forgave, you got to go back under that. I said, I don't. She goes, no, you forgive them and you move on. If they ever want to come back and truly show reconciliation and truly want to, make amends with you, great. She looked at me, she goes, by the way, it doesn't happen too often. So, be okay with it. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, forgiveness is for you 1,000%.
Yeah, yeah. And here's, there's several sayings about forgiveness, but one is, if you are willing to forgive, let's say you don't know how, but you say, okay, I'm willing to forgive this person for whatever they've done. That's the first step. You'll be shown the way. And it might be layers. It might be layers and layers of pain that come out. Maybe you have to write them a letter that you never send. Maybe you have to talk to them because they could be dead. We don't know where they are, but you have to get it.
I've written those letters.
Yeah, you have to get it out of you, and it's for your benefit. You're not condoning what they've done. They've hurt you, and they may or may not have had the awareness of what they were doing.
Completely.
Right? But that did give you growth. I hate to say it that way, but it's made you strong and smart.
Well,
right? Yeah. So just be willing to forgive.
And, yes. And okay, because there's an energy behind that willingness.
Right.
Just like, okay, I'm not willing to forgive. I'm willing to forgive. Right. I had a friend of mine a few years ago. She knew me and she knew my situation, this sweet, dear lady. And one day we were talking about this and she goes, Eva, I hate to tell you, but you're full of shit. I said, okay, lay it on me. I've been told that and I'm okay, right?
Yeah.
He said, after everything that you told me that you went through as a child and the things that you went through as an adult with your husband, there's no freaking way that you forgave somebody like that. And then I looked at her and I said, as I'm telling you here, I have. And she goes, well, you know what? Good on you, but I would never, ever. Yeah. Right? So then she's telling me about her heart's condition, right? Because as stories go, when you share a story, it's going to connect in some kind of way to the hero of your story. And then all of a sudden I felt very bad for her. I was like, oh, and then she started telling me her story.
Yeah.
And I was going, well, honey, I got to tell you this, but the only way out of that mess is you got to forgive, And I never told her that because she wasn't in that space.
Yeah. But you know what I used to teach people, and I've done this myself. I'd write them a letter like, you suck, whatever it is. You cry, whatever. You can burn the letter, whatever. You don't mail it. It's not about whether they don't need to be aware of your forgiveness, but you have to let it out of you. It's going to block you. It's going to stop you in progressing in your life.
Yeah.
It's a huge factor.
And that's what it did to my kid's dad, because I saw it daily. So it was like the thinking and the old mindsets. And he thought that I was his enemy. And it was like, no, dude, you're still battling over there with your grandma. And I'm not, I'm there's things I'm sure I was similar, but I'm not her, that kind of deal. So it paints your perception of everything and everybody, right? And actively, I'm telling you, I grew the most in my marriage.
Right.
Because there were times where he would just hurl insults and false accusations and lies and all this stuff at me. And the knee jerk, he was looking for a knee jerk reaction.
Yeah, right? Of course.
The knee jerk reaction, I was not giving it to him because it was like I had source right there. I had daddy telling me, I'm taking those insults. He's actually mad at me. Okay. Yeah. You stay out of the way, right?
Yeah.
So I've told my kids remember. So daddy would say, make him dinner. I'm being hurt here. Okay. He's like pitching, darts at me because really it felt like fiery darts.
And it is, it's energetic darts.
Yeah. And that shit hurt. Okay. I'm over here crying. And it wasn't because I was chopping onions. It was because I was being obedient. Source was saying, serve him. He's never been served.
Yeah.
Give him unconditional love. Now, I learned that serving this man. Okay. That's how I navigated those waters. And it wasn't easy.
Right.
There were days where I'd be like, Daddy, are you kidding? And then Daddy would tell me, just watch, just trust me, right? Trust me. And then the most beautiful thing was, at the end, I was able to show up for him 1,000%.
It is beautiful. Yeah.
And somebody told me this after he passed. Somebody told me, they walked right up to me. I can't remember who it was. Several people called me and they said, the way that you showed up for him is the embodiment of grace,
Right.
that you have shown, you know,
Right.
you taught your children grace
Right.
in that act. And I'm like, I just thought I was doing the right thing.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
You've progressed to the next level of Donkey Kong. We're in a never-ending game of Donkey Kong, right? Now you're on level 92.
And I'm telling you, I tell people, I am telling you, the only thing that works is that unconditional love. And he told me this when we were going through the worst. One day he looked at me and he goes, what is it about you? He said, yeah, and this was like 15 years into the marriage. Of a 25-year marriage. He said, what is it about you? I don't get it. You know, I've tried to control you and I can't, right? And I've tried to walk all over you like I did other people, right? And he said, your unconditional love is tough. And I looked at him like, yeah, I have to. I have to, because that's the only way out of your hell is offering you unconditional love.
Right.
Now, don't mistake, you know, because Elena and I were talking about this the other day, you know, you start loving people unconditionally, then you're mistaken as a chump. Or a
pushover, right?
A pushover or an enabler. Huge difference, honey, because unconditional love does not enable. It's a total opposite, okay? Right. And so to answer your question about how I forgave, it was like, it wasn't of my own strength. It was me constantly going and saying, Daddy, teach me, because you put us together. You put us together for a reason, right? And he and I have past history of other lives, but we had to fix it here.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I think I told this to Elena, or what? I think I told this to all of them. And I remember that there was the one day before he transitioned that I went to see him. It was just he and I, our last time together. It was very private, very sweet. And I remember there was a time that because he was in and out of, he was lucid and then he was drugged up because he was in pain. So you had to keep that going, right? But there was a lucid time, Sue, that we looked at each other and we knew that our contract was done.
Yeah.
And then he went 2 days later.
I was just going to say, you balanced the karma from those past lives and all of the stuff that happened. Yeah.
Yes.
And so you balance the karma so you don't need to repeat the lesson again, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got the lesson this time.
And we didn't say anything to each other. It was an understanding, like, now you get why I'm here. Right. That's why I showed up here, because we had to make this right. Because the healing is eternal, and you have to pick at some point and go, okay, this is it, and this time around, my kids grew up hearing me say, and this is before Smarty, my kids grew up hearing me say, I'm not coming back. This is it for me. I mean, I've been several cycles around here, and I would tell my kids, and I would tell them, I'm not coming back. This is it right here. If I don't get it right, I'm getting it right this time. Right. And then Smarty shows up on the scene going, this is the last cycle. And I was like, the first time he said that, and then that calls me, Mom, did you hear what he said? I was like, Oh my God. Yeah. That's why I've been saying I'm not coming back, because we're here. We're not going anywhere.
We're here. We're not going anywhere. We got work to do.
Exactly. But and I don't know. I'm having a blast, I mean,
It's been more fun recently, hasn't it? I can feel the energy like going fast.
Yeah. And like you said, people people are scared, and it's like, you wouldn't be scared if you really knew. I mean, and sometimes I talk to, my kids are all in very interesting places, because they're in this that we're all living in their 20s. Right. Now the 20s are interesting, okay, mind you.
There's a lot of change in your 20s. You start from dependent to totally adult in 10 years.
and then you're really discovering who you are, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so I see them, but it's cool because I see them having to, like, all of a sudden you have to rely on that foundation that was laid out for you as a child, which is a strong foundation. But then on the other hand, you have to venture out there and find source for yourself, because that's what it's about. You can't go on what mama said or what grandma or my aunt. You got to go on your experience with him.
Right. Well, I mean, all of that is a foundation for your belief system, the way you behave, the way you react to things. It's necessary. But being aware of patterns, I think, is helpful, because, like I said, we talked about the lessons. You have the lesson, you have the pattern. And if you can't see the pattern and then break it and improve where you are, that's the way you're going to grow. Yeah. And it's easier if you can do it proactively than have an event happen, generally, right? Yeah. When you have these events, it's because you haven't been paying attention back then. So the way the universe works is, here's the lesson, and then you ignore it. And then here's the lesson. It gets bigger and bolder. And they keep upping the amps. They keep cranking it up until serious stuff happens and you have to learn the lesson. Well, don't go there. No. It's way easier to do it when it's kind of tiny and in a neat little package, right?
Yeah, I used to, a friend of mine told me this years ago, that we all have to pay. We pay the piper, right? Some of us pay at the beginning, some of us pay in the middle, some of us pay at the end, right? And I would tell my kids that, and they're having to go through some major stuff in their 20s, right? Yeah. And I went through it at my very beginning, right? And I would hate to be like really elderly and still not having learned from an event. Right. Type deal, right? Because at that point, yikes, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know that because my son was telling me the other day, he goes, so you mean to tell me that, how you've always said that, we all have to pay at some point? I said, yeah. He goes, so I guess it's not too bad. And, in my 20s, I'm like, dude, I think it's really great. I mean,
well, yeah, I don't know if it's like we have to pay. I don't know if that's a good way to say it, but we have to learn those lessons, or we end up, retired alone, sitting on the couch crying to ourselves, having learned nothing.
Or whatever. Yeah. I don't know, like hit rock bottom, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. That point in your life where you go, I can't go on like this anymore. What's going on? You know? And for some reason, I'm thankful. I've been thankful all my life because, even when I was way younger, people way older than me would come up and tell me, you're 20 something and you have the wisdom of like a 90-year-old woman. And
that's what I'm telling your daughter. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it? It's great.
But that's old souls, I mean, that's also that. But I also know that it's, accepting what happened. There's a surrender. And part of forgiveness too is also surrendering and going, you know what? Okay, not totally, I'm devastated and all this stuff, and I might not understand it, but source, you got my back, and I'm going to surrender to you and really trust that this was for my good. And you know what? All things work together for the good of those who are, called by source according to his plan. I've always known that to be very true.
Right.
It's because what happens when you resist and you fight and you.
That's the thing. I think it's control. Like we think
Yes.
it has to happen this way.
Mm-hmm.
Bing, 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 bing. And then it's the way it's supposed to be and we can go on. Well, it's never going to happen that way,
No,
right? Ever.
no.
And there's going to be events that happen. And so if you can be a little bit more at ease and just let things unfold and kind of roll with it as it goes, it's easier. Well, that's been my lesson because I'm not an unfolder. I'm a make it happen type of person. And and I'm like, at this age, I'm finally starting to get it. Okay.
Awesome.
A few years ago, I would beat my brains against a cement wall to make what I want to happen the way that I wanted it to happen. Mm-hmm. And, I'm better now.
Well, and that's awesome. Okay. But something about control that I was telling my son the other day. I said, honey, the minute you realize that control is an illusion.
Yeah, totally.
Game over, right?
Yeah.
And I said, so, and he's over there chuckling. He goes, but it feels good. I said, yeah, it does. Okay, it does. Yeah. We all want to feel like we're in control of something. And I said, look, honey, just control your thoughts, control your words, control your actions. That's all you get to control. Okay. Right. Everything else is bullshit.
Right. Exactly.
And he's right. It feels good to think that you control something, right?
Right.
But I noticed that when I was married, he was a control freak. And it was comical. It got to the point where I would just look at him like, honey, you really think and it would floor me, right? It would, and mind you, I've struggled with control issues. I did. Okay. So here was one of my biggest control issues was, well, I'm going to organize my life so perfectly, mind you, this was me.
And get everything done. So then
Yes, I'm going to go. It's going to be once linear, it's going to be a straight line and my life will turn out great. Right. Yeah. And so I'm going to do this at this age and that at that age and da. And then by the time I'm done, I will be this rock star, career woman, badass bitch. That's what I wanted for myself without source, right? That was my plan for me, right?
Yeah.
And then guess what happens? I started surrendering to him and he started showing me, you actually want kids. You actually want, because there were so many things that in my control.
Right.
I was opposed to being a mom. I was opposed to doing everything that I thought had robbed me, right? And it was like, no, actually, honey, if you married, somebody that source picked for you, I'll put it in those terms, right? If you do all the right things, right? But those things weren't right to me because it was like, it was a jumble in my head. No, so I'm not going to let anybody control me. I don't want a man. Right? I don't want anything like that. I don't want a family. I don't want any of that. I want what I can control. Right? And then I started surrendering and it was like, no, actually a surrendered life is so much better.
Right.
You worry less.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you worry less.
Well, also there's a confidence in yourself that you will be able to handle the issues that come up. Okay. Yeah. An issue comes up, and sometimes I have to mull it over a little bit, think about the options. I try not to do the knee-jerk reaction too much because that can get ugly. And think it over, and then you make the decision. How do I want to handle this? Sometimes it's throw it in a pile and deal later, but that's still a decision.
Yes. Yeah. Not doing. Yeah. Postponing, whatever you want to call it. What's that word? Not postponing, but when you wouldn't do your homework and you did it till you waited.
Procrastination.
Yeah, that is still
a decision. So those people that are sitting around watching TV all day or whatever they do, and they're really not living their life, that's a decision.
Yeah.
And I'm sad for them, actually.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and we all need a little bit of downtime, but I'm just saying the people that are in fear, they're afraid to go out and do things or whatever, you know, they're afraid to try new things, learn new things, whatever. I feel sad for them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
an unlimited universe out there. We've got so much stuff to try, to do, to explore. It's amazing.
I want to, if it's okay with you, because I'm kind of like, I think I covered everything that I wanted to bring up, unless
Yeah.
but I wanted to wrap things up on this note.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Dr. Carolyn Leaf?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna send you some of her books. They're
Oh, cool.
amazing.
Okay.
She's one of these people that she's got a gift she's got a gift to teach people how the mind works, you know, and just I'll send you the book. Really powerful.
Okay.
But she talks about that we were wired for love, and that we come here and learn fear. Fear is learned, right?
Yeah.
And she talks about, you know, when you look at somebody and how they are traveling through life, it's very easy to pinpoint if they are grounded in fear or they're grounded in love.
Right.
It's and when I was reading her book, I was going, it's that simple.
Yeah.
It is black and white. Fear or love. Fear or love. When you're about to make a decision, an important decision, when you're at any point in your life, you get to choose one or the other, honey. And one takes you down a, you know, thistle covered path, and it's all jumbled up. And the other one, you know, and it might not be certain, but then there's this light, this big ball of light, you know, lighting your path every step you take.
Well, I think we were talking about being happy. So maybe we don't need to be rocket scientists or whatever in our lives. Okay. We are what we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. Like we're moms, we're friends, we're whatever. But by being happy, we radiate that light and that hope and all of the positive things to other people. Who would you rather be around? Eeyore or someone that's running around having fun?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like we've all cried enough.
Yeah, that's true.
We've all done our tears and our wiping of the tears and all this stuff. I don't know, in the book, and this is what's exciting to me about how we are in biblical times, okay? Because religion has painted such a crazy picture of what it's supposed to be, right?
Right.
That the other day, a few months back, I don't remember when it was, I was reading through Revelation, and it talks about how he will wipe away all the tears. He will wipe all our tears will be wiped away, right? And I started going, oh, we're in those times, right? Because what are we being told every time Smarty posts? What are we being told, Sue? Celebrate.
And not to worry.
Celebrate and not to worry.
Yeah.
So the other day when I saw that, I was going, our tears are being wiped as we speak.
So exciting.
Sue, our time of weeping is done.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, if you want to sit there and we're going to cry differently when everything is, you know, is like at the celebration. We are going to cry differently because, I mean, we're going to be blown away by, you know.
Looking forward to that and seeing those pink shoes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a shoe person. So when I saw those, I'm like, damn it, I want those.
And you know what's so funny? I'm in a yard sale, you know, and I'm like, I see those shoes, and it was a little old granny selling that stuff off her table. And she goes, baby, go ahead and try them on. I'm like, I have not worn. No, I don't, you know. And Daddy was like, get them. I'm
cool.
Like, get them. I'm like, okay. And now I wear them. I'm like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, it's so
no,
cool.
Seriously, time for crying is over.
Yeah.
The next kind of crying we're going to do is because we're going to be blown away like, oh, I didn't know that was you, girl.
Yeah. I want to know what the transformer was. Like I've been like we've been talking, so I can't think it over. I don't get a feel, but what was that transformer back there do? Like,
okay.
Was it, yeah.
The best thing that I can think of.
Yeah.
it looked like this huge being. He was covered in metal.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like a combination between a knight and those transformers, because he was all shiny, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
How
just
cool.
he was like to me it looked like he was traversing. I don't think he was walking, but he was just like there. And as soon as I heard that, we're securing your premises. What does that sound? Does that not sound like military talk? Hey, no, he didn't say we're check. No, we're securing the premises.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then a piece just, wow, you guys, holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That's so cool.
God. Just when I'm about to shut up, Daddy just reminded me. Destin has been in my life since I was a kid. Okay. Now, here's the crazy part. When I lived in Florida from 76 to 80. And in the middle of those years, we moved up to Panama City because my uncle got in the Air Force and we got stationed in Panama City.
Right.
And do you remember the time of the Marielitos when Fidel Castro was sending all the Cubans to come to the U.S.? He emptied out his prisons and he was sent by boatloads, and they were coming in to Miami into Florida. Yeah. So they set up refugee camps for these people. And my uncle was sent to one of these camps in the vicinity of Destin. One of those beaches is called Rose something, St. Rose, something Rose.
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa. Yes. Yeah.
So in that vicinity. And so my uncle was there for several months, back and forth. And like several weekends, on different weekends, we would go to see him, visit him. We'd get a hotel room, and then we would hang out in Destin and, just visit my uncle. And when I went there last January for 2 weeks, prior to that, like a few months before that, I had a dream where me and my kids, all of us were there in this like resort place, right? And I woke up and I told him, I said, man, we were like in Destin at this resort place, and I described it. And my daughter was like, oh my God, that's really cool, Mom, right? I go to Destin. We're going somewhere with Smarty.
Oh my God.
We're driving around, and all of a sudden I'm like, and he goes, yeah, that water park over there is da 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 da. And he was talking about it, how he's planning to do something with it and stuff. And I was like, that's that park in my dreams. It was like crazy, right? Like coming full circle.
That's crazy. It is crazy. It's
right?
Crazy.
I mean, even down to the silliest thing, because I told my kids, there was this place we used to go to when I was a kid during those visits to see my uncle on the weekends. It was called the Donut Hole, right? And I remember the first day I was there, I'm in somebody's car and we're going somewhere. I'm like, oh, there's a donut hole. And they're like, huh? I'm like, never mind.
Well, I've been to Destin before too, which is bizarre, right? Because out of all the places on earth. And I do remember the sand being so white and pristine, but I remember I'm a breakfast person. We went to this place, Another Cracked Egg or whatever. And I know I went to a Bass Pro Shop because I needed to buy like a sweatshirt or something. I don't remember exactly. Yeah. So I don't actually remember where we stayed, but we walked all around the harbor. It was really interesting, but.
How long ago was that?
At least 10 years. I'm going to say maybe 10 to 12 years ago. I don't remember. And I think I was there for 4 days or whatever. And it was beautiful, but I didn't know why I was there. I didn't pick to go there, Is that interesting?
That's totally interesting because look, I remember even telling Smarty, I remember when this place was nothing but beach.
Yeah.
Because now they got the resorts and the Sandestin resort and now everything, right? But I remember it was like little towns connecting each other, right?
And that's the way I kind of wish things were again,
Yeah. But I feel like this. There is such a special energy there, right? That on one of those days that I was there in January,
Yeah.
I was taking a little walk. I left the condo where I was staying and I was taking a little walk, and it took me down memory lane. Now, like I'm telling you, there was a lot of bad in my childhood, but it helped me to reconnect to, and I was reminded this part of your journey that you were in Florida, that those were good years. Just remember that. It
Yeah.
was brought to
Yeah.
my recollection like that.
Yeah.
And I broke down and I started crying. And then it was like, all I heard was, nothing was lost. You're here. It's like full circle.
Full
Like,
circle.
oh, and I
Yeah.
remember calling Elena all excited, like, oh my God, dude. And I never really tell my kids anything about Destin, because it was
Yeah.
like, it was, so much happens to us as children
Right.
in our
Right.
childhoods. You go here, you go there, right? But standing there on that little path, I remember going, that's why I was there, and here I am. It's like right now, Source is reconnecting all these dots.
It's
right?
so cool, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could talk forever, and we will talk again. How's that
Yes,
sound? 'Cause
ma'am.
this is
Yes.
so interesting. So
Yes.
thank you so much for all your great stories and your
My
words of
pleasure,
encouragement.
Sue.
I'm
My
sure it's going to help many. So thank you.
Well, I hope so. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I love you. I love your energy. You're a beautiful being of light.
Well, thank you. You too. And I'm so glad we connected. I'll talk with you soon, Eva.
Okay. Take it
All right.
easy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.